Age took up a lot of my energy, and I realised I had to let it go. And eventually I did, and there were a myriad number of issues that I had to work my way through, one of them working out how to support my children. And eventually, over time, I began to look at my marriage in a way a bit more sympathetically, perhaps, and wrongly, I suppose. But when he was writing to me at first, I wouldn't read his letters from prison because of the anger. But slowly, as I began to have some sympathy for his situation and to appreciate that he still is the father of my children, I did begin to read those letters. And in those letters, he was apologetic. He was accepting responsibility. He was talking about how he'd suddenly come to appreciate the value of his family. So when he came out, I felt terribly sorry that he had nowhere else to go. He was still the father of my children, and I allowed him to stay. He slept on the couch, but I allowed him to come back into the family home. And wrongly, that was a facade. I learned after about a month and a half of him being out of prison. He could not keep up the facade, and he really hadn't accepted responsibility. He really wasn't sorry, and his family wasn't his priority. And the same patterns that had been there before started to re-emerge.
You need that Maya Angelou lesson.
I do. Yeah. Yes, we suffer from that same problem.
People show you who they are.
That's who they are.
Yes.
That's who they are.
So you had an epiphany about secrets in a relationship.
I did, and I learned that there's never just one.
Never. Correct. There's never just one.
No. If there's one betrayal, there's almost always others. Yes.
And so that lesson has come hard for you? When you realized the second time, after you allowed him home and he served the time in prison, and you believed in the letter, because you know what, when you're in prison, it's very easy to write a sympathetic letter.
Of course, I appreciate
it. What else do you have to do?
Yes.
To say how sorry you are and how much you understand, and really, you're a different man, and you saw Jesus and everything. You know, what else is there to do?
Right. Well, I appreciate all of that now.
You appreciate that now?
Yes.
So you're saying, though, you believed it at first.
I wanted to believe it. What was hardest for me to let go was not the lifestyle, not the properties, not the friends. What was hardest for me to let go was the fantasy of my marriage. I wanted to believe in the fairy tale romance, that it was still there and still possible.
That is such a brilliant thing that you're just saying, because I think for so many women and men too, who find it hard to let go, what you're really letting go is not what you had, because what you had was a mess.
Correct.
What you're letting go is the dream of what you wanted to have.
That's right.
So it's letting go of the dream of what you hoped it could be.
And that's the hardest thing to let go of. Yes. And when I did let go of it, there was such clarity, there was such liberty. I felt free to be myself and to move forward. And until I got to that point, he was still holding me back.
Would you say you were living in a fog?
Oh, yes.
During your marriage?
Oh, yes. In two ways. Motherhood, I was in a fog because I wasn't getting very much sleep with three young boys. And the fog of affluence. The fog of affluence. And so you lose touch. And for me, you lose touch with reality. But for me, I also forgot that, hey, you know, I'm an educated woman. I know how to think for myself. I know how to survive on my own. And I'd forgotten those things. And it took this tragedy to wake me up.
Would you say you lost yourself?
I did. Completely lost myself.
I know a lot of women watching you right now can get to understand that.
Yes.
How quickly do your rich friends leave you?
Like that.
Like that. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah, like that.
They're gone. Because they're like, don't come to me for money.
No.
Right.
Well, no, that's right. They're very tight. And in my case, I was living in a community full of Wall Street wives. These were women who also probably really didn't know what their husbands were up to, because they were in a wealthy enclave an hour north of Manhattan, and their husbands all week were in Manhattan staying over in pied-à-terres. And so they didn't want to see what was happening to me, because just like that, it could be happening to them.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Oprah. Thank you.
And thank you to all of our guests today. Remember, somebody shows you who they are. Believe them the first time. Bye, everybody. Yes, there's a secret. There's more secrets.
Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
A 3-year-old in the spotlight. But is she fulfilling her mother's dream?
You said you wanted to be a success, but what you mean is you wanted to be a star.
I know what Kamora's capable of.
She's 3. She isn't waking up saying, I want to be a TV star.
No, but she'll wake up and say, Mom, I want to go take a picture.
You are getting way ahead of yourself. Find out what a top Hollywood casting director has to say.
I want to give you some really sound advice.
I wanted to believe in a fairy tale marriage. Created March 22nd, 2010, using the guitar chords B minor and A. I wanted to believe in a fairy tale marriage. That's what she was saying. She lived on a street or in a neighborhood with a lot of Wall Street wives. They thought that they'd probably find the same thing was happening to them. They didn't want to become wise. Her rich friends dropped her just like that with the snap of a finger. She found things were shallow. She was another woman in this world who gave her life to her husband and their family. Wanted a fairy tale marriage. Lost herself in it all. Lost her skills to self-survive. Become independent. Now she had to become an independent wife. Things fell apart, so she had no other choice. She had a wake-up call, but she still thought all in all, I wanted that fairy tale marriage. Could I put it back together like Humpty Dumpty? Tried as she may, she had to make a choice of realizing she'd been a dummy. She'd been a dummy. She'd been taken like he took others. She'd been taken like he dumped others. Well, eventually you find out, and then you survive. You survive. You survive.